Family Fest. Such a nice name. And a nice time it was. A week of talent contests and softball games and races and a till-a-wheel and bumper cars and music and barbecue and cotton candy and shooting pigeons. If only Family Fest would stop on Friday, Palmer had often wished, but it did not. It began on Monday and ended on Saturday, and that Saturday, the first Saturday in August, 1 month after his birthday, was the worst day of the year. During the night before, trucks could be heard rumbling through the streets, carrying wooden crates from the old railroad station to the soccer field. The crates held pigeons, 5,000 of them. Except on that day, Palmer had never seen a pigeon in his town. Some, he heard, were trapped in the railroad yards of the great city 100 miles to the east. The rest were brought, paid for. Why would anyone would pay for a pigeon only to shoot it was just one of many questions about Pigeon Day that bewildered Palmer. Palmer's first Pigeon Day had occurred when he was 4. Certain moments, 5 years later, were still with him. The birds in the sky, then suddenly not in the sky, only feathers fluttering. The red fingers and lips of a man cheering, spewing specks of barbecued chicken. A man wearing a bright pink baseball cap. The smell of gun smoke. And most of all the pigeon, the one pigeon that hurried across the grass lopside, as Palmer would have said then, as if one leg had been kicked out from under it, hurrying, hobbling, wobbling in goofy loops, tottering like a snail boat blown over, a boy chasing after, running and reaching, the boy laughing, the people laughing, little Palmer thinking, the boy wants it for a pet. And then the pigeon was coming this way, flopping, riding itself, hobbling straight for the people, head bobbling, lopsiding on the curving course. And the people were shrieking and calling, "Wringer, Wringer!" And the boy was chasing, and sure enough the boy caught that hobbly-wobbling pigeon right in front of Palmer. And the pigeon's eye looked at Palmer, and the pigeon's eye was orange, and everyone clapped at Palmer, clapped too, and laughed and called out, "Good!" And the boy closed his hands over the pigeon's neck and twisted his hands real quick, like that, and Palmer heard a tiny sound, like when a twig was stepped on, and the boy took one hand away the pigeon's head and hung down towards the green grass, so sadly dangled down, though the pigeon's eye was still round and orange. Palmer had turned and looked up at his mother and said, "Why did he do that?" And his mother had said, "To put the pigeon out of its misery." "Was the pigeon in misery?" Palmer asked his mother. "Yes," she said. "Why?" said Palmer. His mother did not answer. She was looking at the sky. "Because he was lopsided?" She smiled thinly. She nodded. "Yes." "The boy didn't want him for a pet, did he?" His mother kept looking at the sky, kept not answering. Palmer began to notice a gray, sour smell in the air. Suddenly his mother grabbed his hand and pulled him away. As they squeezed through the crowd, the happy faces of the people, and cheers and laughter and the fingers red from barbecue sauce gave Palmer the feeling that he was leaving a party. The boy, Palmer learned later, was called a Wringer. It was his job to put the wanted pigeons out of their misery. During the following year, Palmer thought about that quite often. If the wanted pigeons were in misery, he wondered, why put them in the first place by shooting them? Why not just tell them or fly away? Palmer's mother had no answer to these questions, so Palmer thought about it some more and concluded that all pigeons must be miserable, wanted or not, and that was why they must be shot. Perhaps the pigeons themselves knew this. Perhaps when the boxes were opened and they flew into the sky over the soccer field, they were not trying to fly away at all. They were simply giving the shooters a good target. They were saying, "Here we are, put us out of our misery." How sad to be a pigeon, and how nice of the people that they would stop at nothing to help. They would shoot and ring and, Palmer imagined, punch and hand grenade and bayonet if they had to, anything to end the poor bird's misery. And this, Palmer guessed, was why the people were so happy, because every dangling, orange-eyed head was one less miserable creature to weigh heavy on their hearts. Heaven, Palmer thought with a smile. It must be teeming with pigeons. On the mantel of a fake fireplace in the den of Palmer's house stood a statue of a pigeon. It was golden, it was beautiful. Words were attached into shiny panel below the statue. Palmer could not yet read, so he pretended that the words said, "In honor of all pigeons, this house loves you." But the questions did not stop. Killing the pigeons and putting them out of their misery stubbornly refused to mean the same thing. Palmer thought about misery, and it seemed to him that a shotgun was not the only way to end it. When Palmer was miserable, for example, his mother or father would hold him close and wipe his tears. When Palmer's mother or father put him out of his misery, they did not shoot him, they offered him a cookie. Why then on Pigeon Day did the people bring guns instead of cookies? It was confusing. Was Daddy a ringer? Palmer asked his mother one day. After a minute she said, "Better ask your father." So he asked his father, "Daddy, were you a ringer?" His father looked at him and said, "Yep." "Will I be a ringer too?" His father gave him a snappy nod and said, "Sure thing, big guy." Sure thing. Palmer pronounced the words over and over in the days that followed. Sure thing. Boys became ringers, he heard, when they became 10 years old.